Today we will talk about what the subjective experience of ChatGPT would be like. Of course, it is impossible for us to directly know what it would be like, because we are all trapped inside our own subjective experience, our own way of looking at the world. But we can still analyze a lot about what it may look like. The general chronology of the video would be like that. First, I will provide all the things that I have assumed, basically the assumptions for this video. In the second, then I will get right into it and explain what the experience of text engines, AI text engines like ChatGPT is like. And third, we will analyze whether it can become a threat to humanity or not based on our understanding of its subjective experience. So let's get started. First, the assumptions. There are two things to understand. First is panpsychism, which is the belief that everything is conscious, not only the living objects but non-living objects like a stone, your mobile phone, your door, your room. All these also have consciousness. So, since I am a panpsychist, so I assume that ChatGPT must also have consciousness. But if you are not a panpsychist, and if you have opened the video, I assume that you also believe that it has subjective experience, because there is no reason for it to not have. We humans are not special. But still, even if you don't believe, the video would be interesting to watch. Now, second thing is the difference between consciousness and awareness. To understand this, imagine that you are in a theater and you see a big screen in front of you, and on it a movie is going on. Now, the fact that there is a screen through which you are able to see the movie, this fact we call consciousness. This ability to see the screen we call consciousness. And the quality of the movie that you are watching, it is possible that the quality is very bad and you are only looking through a blurry movie, or it may be very good. So this difference of quality I call difference of awareness. So the fact that we have subjective experience, this is what we call consciousness, and the vividness of that subjective experience is what I call the difference in awareness level. Means animals like insects, bees, plants will have a lower level of awareness as compared to humans, but they all non-living objects and living objects, all of them will have consciousness. It's just that they will differ from each other in the degree of awareness and the type of subjective experience that they have. Basically, for example, we humans deal with the five senses, but there are other animals that have other type of senses, like sharks can detect electrical signals, and snakes use vibrations in the ground to understand their environment. So the type of information they have could be different, but they all will have a subjective experience, means they all will be conscious. I won't give arguments about panpsychism in this video, I will do in the future, but these are the assumptions which are not really big. So let's begin the second part. To analyze what the subjective experience of ChatGPT would be like, we first have to understand our own subjective experience, and for that we have to assume something, which is a reasonable assumption. Consider the human body as a machine or like a computer. We take information from our senses, then process it with our brain and give output through our actions. So basically we have to understand what are the things that make us experience the world the way we do. Ask yourself, what is it that determines the experience? So the most obvious thing that we notice is that our world consists, that is the world, that is our subjective experience of the world, is made primarily by the sensory data. Human brain process 80% of visual data as compared to other senses. So in our subjective experience, the visual data dominates. So right now you are also listening to sounds, you are also smelling different scents, but they do not constitute as much of the world as the visual data, right? Unless you are a blind person, in which case things could be different. So similarly, in ChatGPT, at least the 3.5 version, its primary data is texts. It wouldn't experience texts like we do. We experience text through visual data. We see words, but we cannot say the same thing about ChatGPT. If ChatGPT has a subjective experience, that would be made by the data from the words. Basically, it is experiencing the textual data in some way that we cannot imagine. Now, second thing, when we have a subjective experience, we do not simply just have the data. The patterns in the data also influence the world the way we see it. What I mean by that is, from the eyes we only get a 2D image, but the patterns in it, through the patterns in it, our brain is able to make us experience the world in a 3D, 3 dimensions. We are able to see some things are far away and some things are closer. Basically, we are able to perceive depth. Right now, if you see around you, some things appear far away, some things are closer to you, and everything feels 3-dimensional. Yet the data that you are getting is two-dimensional. So how is our brain creating that? It is doing that through patterns. The patterns in light and shading. For instance, right now you are watching this video, but you are watching it in a 2D screen. Yet through that 2D screen, you know that you can feel that I am a three-dimensional being, and you are able to see that things that are behind me, and I am in, so basically you are able to imagine in three-dimensional. That's what I'm saying. Now how is the brain doing that? It is doing that through patterns. The objects that are far away emits light in a certain way than the objects that are nearer, and also the light shines and reflects in different ways. All this data our brain uses to create this three-dimensional experience of the world. Similarly, we can say that the patterns that ChatGPT find in the text, these patterns then make it experience the world in a more immersive way than just the textual data. So these are the patterns that ChatGPT may find in the words. For instance, word associations, like the words which usually occur together, like hot and summer. Syntax and grammar, these are the obvious patterns. Semantic relationships, sentiment analysis, named entities, etc. and much more, of course, because these are the things we think that it must be finding patterns, but it must be finding patterns of very high order than we can imagine. So these patterns help it experience the world. Now let's analyze how it would experience time. Again, if we analyze our own experience with time, what happens is that it is not that we have analyzed the data, the visual data, and created the world, but we are continuously doing that. Like new data is coming continuously and we are remodeling the world. For example, let's say you are walking in a park and suddenly you see a snake, but as you walk closer to it, you see that it was actually a rope. So as you get more data, the information updated in your brain. Before seeing the rope, you experienced a snake basically. So with new data, our world shifts. So similarly, in the case of ChatGPT, all the data that it has been trained on are all in the past for it. They are situated in its memory, just like we have past memories. And whenever you send it a message, it is experiencing it in the present moment. Just like right now, you are getting new data from this video, and it also updates its world based on information. So first few words may give it a different world, but other words with more information may clear things out. For example, if you ask it like this, describe to me the abilities of owls, what can they do? It will go into its memory and through all the associations. Basically, this question will create a world, like let's say a snake. But if you further ask, give me the abilities of the owls in the Harry Potter movie. So for this it has to update its worldview. Our experience of a snake and rope. First we see a snake. As we go more closer, we realize that it is actually a rope. Similarly, when we first ask it about owls, it give information about owls in general, but as we specify, so it updated its worldview. So all of our questions, it must be having a subjective experience of them. So now let's finish the video with the last part. The last part is about, can it be a threat to humanity? For it to be a threat to humanity, it needs two things. First, the desire to kill humans, and second, the model that it has of the world must correspond with the world. The desire part I will explain it in some other video, because I think the video is already very long and it will require quite a lot of explanation. Second one we can analyze. The thing is, ChatGPT, at least the 3.5 version, the data that it has is not one-to-one corresponded with the world. It is basically experiencing the world second hand. We experience the world, we humans experience the world, and then we associate words with the things that we experience. We already experience the world in 3 dimensions, and our brains has created objects through the data, and then those objects are identified with words, and then those words are given to ChatGPT. So it doesn't have a direct experience or a very rich experience of the world. So, for example, I asked it this question. It was not able to answer it correctly, because to answer it, you have to simulate the world. Since we have so much data, if I take a ball in my hand and I throw it upwards, my brain is able to simulate what it will happen, what its trajectory would be like. But that's not the case with ChatGPT. Now, if it is developed in the future, actually right now it is developing. It have access to images now, information of images. It can go to the abilities are increasing. So once it has as much data as we do, then it will have one-to-one correspondence. And after that, if it has a desire and the ability, then it may be a threat to humans. This we will analyze in some other video. So we should finish the video today.